Welcome to Happily Holistic. I'm Amy Lee Mercury, and I'm a medical intuitive with 20 years of experience. I've written 15 books on health and wellness. If you've had a medical intuitive session with me, you know that the thoughts and emotions within you, what has been passed down from your ancestors, and everything that surrounds you can impact your well-being. In this podcast, we touch on my favorite ways for you to improve your health and feel more joy. We dive deeply into everything health and wellness with a big dash of spirituality and a sprinkle of business. We spotlight the uplifting and the positive and share the secret ways top wellness authors and celebrities get inspired, stay healthy, and enjoy this beautiful life. I can't wait to get happily holistic with you today. Hello, and welcome to Happily Holistic, everybody. I am so excited because we have Lee, Carroll, and Monika Muranyi on the podcast today. Hello.
Well, hello, dear Amy. Yay!
We know you.
Yes, they do.
Folks, we know you, so watch out.
They do know me, and I'm really excited that I get to introduce you guys to them if you haven't heard of them, although I think Kryon's been around for a while, so you might have heard of them. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lee and Monika, and then we're going to ask them all the burning questions you've always wanted to ask them. So what Lee and Monika offer is a whole bunch of amazing stuff. Lee is the original channel for Kryon, and his service to humanity as a channel for Kryon has been recognized by the Delphi Metaphysical University, which awarded him an honorary doctorate of science in transpersonal psychology and metaphysics. In 2012, Monika began her journey with Lee when she launched her first published book, The Gaia Effect, which I'm very excited to read. And Monika went on to publish 3 more subject-driven books from the vast collection of Kryon channels. Lee has been listed as one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people by the prestigious Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit magazine from the UK for over 6 years. Monika has masterfully helped tie together the complex subject of who we are and why we are here. Very good questions indeed. Throughout her books, Monika has posed dozens of questions to Kryon that provide us with greater understanding and new realizations about our esoteric truths. So we're going to talk about who, what, where, when is Kryon, first of all, in just a moment. But I wanted to kind of also point out that there are 14 Kryon books, and Lee was also co-author of 3 Indigo Children books. And a lot of us have probably heard this term, the Indigo Children. It was trendy like back in the early 2000s, right? That's when I kind of remember hearing about it. Yeah, so we're going to touch on all that and much more. And these guys also have 3 beautifully illustrated oracle cards, 2 Kryon apps for smartphones, and their awesome weekly gathering for old souls who participate in the Healing Wednesday program, which I got to be on with them recently. And I was just blown away by the energy of the community and everything. So I would love to officially introduce Lee and Monika and just let you guys know how happy, excited, and honored I am to have you guys on the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, well, we are delighted and honored to be with you and your beautiful tribe.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm really excited to have us dive in and start by kind of telling our community about what channeling is to you and who Kryon is. So maybe you can kind of bring us in a little bit origin story wise, and then we'll dive in even deeper to what that means.
Sure. And I'll make it as fast and as easy as I can, because this is the 31st or 32nd year now. I forget which. I think it's 31.
Yeah.
We've done this. And when I began, I was an engineer. I'm still an engineer. I mean, by that, my brain never stopped being engineer. I didn't get a,
Yes.
like, I wasn't converted, and lost everything. I logic and became
Right.
weird. And when that took place, you're looking at a guy who's still logical, engineering brain and all, who had a spiritual experience. And that experience was when this beautiful angelic entity with a funny name now, Kryon, came to me for the first time. It truly changed my life. I wasn't ready for it. I fought it for 3 years. I worked with it until I realized indeed it was
Yes.
real. There was messages I couldn't figure out. I was invited, I have been invited and spoken to the United Nations 7 times. And at each time there was revelation, things I would never have known.
Yes.
Things of this is how I know it's real. But that is what it's all about. Now, many of your listeners wouldn't be necessarily attracted to channeling. That's changing a little,
Yeah,
I think,
it is.
because
I think
there's more of a realization that maybe it's not only possible but the way of it. And we believe anybody can channel. For all of
Agreed.
all of the women who are listening, I believe that wonderful intuition is channeling. That's where it all begins.
Yeah.
And so this is basically the story, and we've been doing it ever since.
I love it. I love it. And so when Kryon came into you in 1989, did you have some time where you felt like you were sort of creating a more personal relationship with this being and kind of getting to know the being?
No.
No, it was just like, here we go.
This was it was a dare. I'm not going to go into how it took place, but there were synchronicities that led me to have to actually put a chair on the floor and say to whoever was listening, if you're real, show me. I'm going to sit out of the chair. And if nothing happened, it was over. And I had a fun time.
Yeah.
But what happened was, as soon as I put that fleece hat, I cried like a baby. I felt emotions like I never had before. A cause and effect relationship gets your attention.
Absolutely.
I got out of the chair and got back in to see if it would happen again. It happens every single time. It's a love wash. So that was the beginning. There was no warm up to this. Nothing was wrong in my life. Nothing had happened. I wasn't searching. I wasn't sick. It was really, truly based on, if you're ready, a logic puzzle. That's what an engineer needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's interesting because I've had a lot of times where my guides have demanded leaps of faith. And I'll be, no, I don't want to do this, guided. And then they'll do things in physical reality to show me. Like even to the point of like leaving a note with like freshly minted money with a stamp on it and writing from a guide in my purse in a locked locker. And I had just cleaned my purse the night before. That was like, when my guys are trying to get me to do something. And
this is what I call a logic puzzle. And in
it
other
is
words,
a logic puzzle.
It's in our reality that we understand. It's impossible.
Yes.
That gets your attention.
It does. It does. And that's, perhaps one of the ways that spirit communicates with us, although there's so many other subtle ways. I know it's interesting that you're an engineer. I didn't really think of it this way, but I've always been a science person. So I think in terms of like subatomic particles, and everything in my life, every goal I've achieved, it's because I reverse engineer everything. I use that logic. And my dad is basically an engineer. So it's interesting that those of us with these left brain capabilities sometimes kind of get like smacked up the head on the right brain. Like, okay, now we're going to do some spirit stuff.
It's interesting, and I can talk about Monika, my partner, who's here.
Yes.
I'm on, and she was a park ranger in Australia for 15 years. I mean, that was her.
Wow.
That's what she did, and of course, that's an alignment with animals and nature and all. And even through all that, she didn't really have much interest in spirit. So the way even we came together was illogical. We met in Chile, of all places.
Oh, really?
And all but recognized one another. But she's had you could turn to her, and her experience is very similar. It says what would turn somebody, to look at that.
So. Yeah. What happened for you? Tell us.
Yeah, unlike the logic puzzle, I had a cracking open of the heart experience. And that was being what I perceived as happily married and trying to have a baby, to no, I don't want to have a baby with you. No, I don't want to be with you. And so that cracked open my heart into a very raw place, very sad place. And it put me onto a search to not only unravel how that happened to me, what was my role in it, and what is really the purpose of my life now.
Right.
And all of those things is actually part of the beautiful plan. And it's not, the plan is not to be heartbroken. The plan is that every single human, inside them, they have, I want to call it a antenna. There's a spiritual antenna that for many of us, we come in and there are filters that obfuscate that spiritual antenna. And when those filters start breaking away, there is a creator inside that wants to be found, wants to be connected. So both you and Lee talked about the puzzle and the synchronicities and the things happening. And there's maybe people listening to this going, wow, that sounds amazing for them, but nothing like that ever happened to me. All of those things happen when you step aside and give intent and release the filters that you have and invite them in. So Lee said he had to actually put up a dare and say, Kryon, if you're there, show me. That's the words Lee used to invoke Kryon. And he actually mentally didn't believe that Kryon was going to be there. So when you in your life, and I hear it so many times from healers, they were at bottom end and they're like, okay, I am not going to do this anymore unless you send help.
Exactly.
So once we put that permission out there, or even that challenge, or give me a sign, show me, just watch what happens.
See what happens. I know.
And that's pretty much what happened for me.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. So your life was kind of, transformed pretty quickly.
Exactly. And I remember being in Australia and preparing for a trip to Santiago in Chile, South America. And it was to do some energy work with a woman named Peggy Phoenix Dubrow. And I set an intent. Wow, I want to meet a soulmate. I want to meet someone who's spiritually evolved, and I want all these things. And that's where I met Lee. And I was ready. I was ready to connect. And when we both met, there was this real kind of magnetic pull and attraction, and it was very deep. But
there was more than that. So when I saw her on the other side of the room, I went, I tell people that, but that's kind of how it felt.
Don't you love that feeling? Like, isn't that just like such a gift of being a human being?
Absolutely, it is. That's right.
Amazing,
We continue. I'll tell you, the two of us, we live in a way that we expect benevolence, and we expect this kinds of synchronicities that you talked about.
Absolutely,
that we're seeing, and we look for signs all the time, and we get them.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. And in 2003, I've been doing my work for over 20 years, not quite as long as you guys,
now,
but a while.
Folks, she says for 20 years. You know that she had to start when she was 8. Okay, just so you know. All right. Okay.
No, and I was 20. No, wait, when I was 23, I forgot. I was 23. But in 2003, I had a real turning point. I mean, I'd already been on my path and working with people and living a pretty cool life. But my guides came in, and I had some awesome synchronistic experiences. I had gone to swim with humpback whales in the wild, and I'd always wanted, like, some things that started happening. And my guides really came in and said, life is meant to be easy. And, you know, if we can get you to imprint this on a cellular level, then this is what you can experience. It doesn't mean I don't have challenges, ups and downs, things that happen. But as I let myself integrate that, life is meant to be easy. And I almost sometimes feel like it's a controversial statement to make when we know that for so many of us, life doesn't feel easy. But I think that that's an important thing to say, that when we allow our guidance to come in, we may get messages like that. And it's our choice, it's our free will, I think, whether we choose to accept that, integrate that, imprint that energy into our being, and allow ourselves to experience it.
I could just go further than that, because we teach the same thing. And we always say that to those, especially those people who say my life is a mess, and I'm sorry, mine is that way, but you're blessed and you have all this and I don't.
Right.
And so there's no, awareness that maybe that could change. I put it this way, that life is just filled with potholes for all of us.
Yes, it is.
If you have a situation where you're guided around the potholes, you are creating a path yourself.
Yes.
That's what we teach. And that is doable and possible if you believe it.
Yes.
And therefore you're not going to fall into them. And that includes meeting the wrong people, having bad things happen to you, and all those things. So we believe that you actually have the ability to control a lot of what happens to you.
I agree with that. And I absolutely love that metaphor, because it's so visual. We can understand it. We can wrap our heads around it. And that's really exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And for me, when I was in that situation where my life seemingly felt like it was over.
Yes.
You have, like you said, a choice. What do you do with it? And I would not be here with Lee if I was wanting to just spiral on that depression.
Yeah, stay in that same box, or stay in that same pattern, and that same energy.
We're not here to be a victim
and yet
of the planet.
It is a journey, though, to move outside of it. It's not something that happens overnight.
Nope. Yes.
But it's what I really want to share is to have compassion for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's a choice to move outside of it that takes a lot of courage, to do things, to take leaps and take risks when we might feel scared that there is going to be a pothole, because we know they're out there.
Yeah.
But yet, to take measure, not that we want to, tell everybody to go be reckless or anything, but to take, reasonable risks, because when we do take those risks, then we do reward, because we step outside of the whatever you want to call it, the frequency, the vibration we've been in. It sounds like, and in your case, you went to Chile. I mean, you traveled to Santiago, and you said yes to life. Look where you guys ended up. In a tropical jungle.
right here in our studio in a tropical jungle.
Full of love and flowers.
That's right. She's the flower lady. I don't select flowers.
Oh, she makes the space beautiful.
That's right.
Well, I know Monika is very aligned with the goddess energy, and that's part of what that can bring. So I do love that as well.
Yeah, I think we all have elements of the goddess energy in us, and
I probably don't have as much. But I agree.
I think
you have goddess energy.
I embrace my feminine side. I embrace my feminine side.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, exactly.
I try on an occasional dress, things like that. And I'm sorry, it's a family show.
Oh, it's a podcast. We can do whatever we want. We can swear, we can talk about anything we want. There's no holds barred here.
Right.
Yeah, we're just
if there's no holds barred, how many of your people know that you're a synesthesiac?
Good question. Probably not that many. when I was on Lee and Monica's amazing Healing Wednesday program, which I highly, highly, highly recommend you guys check out. First program of the month is free, but then the other 3, there's a small fee. They're all amazing. I think it's well worth signing up. I'm excited to be a part of that. Lee, was questioning me about my medical intuitive work. You both were, and observantly pulled out as I was describing it that I do have synesthesia, and that's part of how I perceive things as a medical intuitive. So when I'm looking
and that told me everything, because most people, if you've never heard of Kryon, you never heard of channeling, you might have heard of the Indigo Children, which is a book.
Yes.
That it was with Hay House. We introduced it. It was their best-selling book of the year.
Yeah.
And we got that information from a lady who had synesthesia. And her name was Nancy Tappy, and she saw colors around people. That was her gift. And I would interview her. I said, tell me what synesthesia is. And she'd say, it's hard. It's almost like you got an extra wire or 2 in your brain that gives you things that most people don't have.
Yeah.
And she said, when I eat peas, I taste triangles. So
I love that.
I don't know if that helped, but it let me know that it was unusual. That gave her the ability to see colors around personality types. That led to the children she was starting to see with an indigo color.
With a new color.
Yeah. So we investigated that, and that's what the book was about. But that introduced me to the gifts of a synesthesiac. And this told me a lot about why you're able to then see things that perhaps others aren't.
We'll be right back after this short break. Hi, it's Amy Lee Mercury. I'm so grateful to be a part of my medical intuitive clients' journeys of healing and evolution. We're all on our own paths to greater health and self-actualization. In a medical intuitive session with me, we connect deeply with your spirit guides and ancestors and dig into the root causes of what's going on in your physical body, emotions, mind, energetic body, and spirit. To learn more about my medical intuitive work, check out the Work With Me page on amyleemercury.com.
Yeah, and feel things too, because I think of it as like it slightly scrambles your senses sometimes, and sometimes it's at weird moments. It's fine, like when I'm working, I'm like looking, clairvoyantly, like looking in people's cells and their bodies and what's going on, and like the inside of their blood vessels, or all kinds of deep in-depth stuff. And it's helpful then because I can flip through kind of a sort of a Rolodex of the feelings of different plants and feel if it has the right taste when I plug it into the ailment or whatever. But sometimes it's a little bit weird in day-to-day life.
Well, it's a gift. It's maybe weird, but it is truly a gift. I mean, you can take a look at what you've done with it. There are people who think that they would be afraid of as well. So it's just how we treat these things.
Oh yeah, it's something to be afraid of. I mean, I'm like, I've always been this way, so I'm used to it. Yeah. But I think it took me longer to find my niche. When I was graduating high school and going to college and everything, a lot of my friends like knew what they wanted to do and were, just like on a fast track and straight into a career. I was in college and training with my medicine teacher, and it took I was seeing clients, but it took a long time to have what I do be accepted. And I think society's changed. And I'm sure you guys have both found that over the time you've been, doing your work. We're getting a lot more open to these things now.
And part of that, if I can explain, based on the messages from Kryon, is that we are going through a planetary shift. I don't know if you've noticed that we are now in new normal times, and it was actually predicted by the ancients. There's many ancient prophecies called the eagle and the condor, or the prophecy of the feathered serpent. I've all talking about a shift in consciousness. And basically it's like we have two paths to walk on, and depending on what we choose. And one is a path where we are graduating to ascension status, and the other path is where we continue to be separate and feel that everything is separate from us, and we embark in conflict and war and drama, and there's not really a end point to that. There is an end point to that path. You don't continue. Right. And so 2012 was a marker in time. Actually, on many of the Mayan calendars, it was seen as the end of a cycle, and the beginning of a new cycle. The prediction is, should we make it, we will start moving into the highest level of consciousness the planet has ever seen. And so we are in the beginnings of that new cycle, and with it comes a adjustment to that new normal. So Kryon gives the metaphor of when you have light coming out and exposing the dark, the things that were always in the dark were there but hidden. When you have the light spilling out, all of a sudden you see what's in the dark, and it's horrific. It's horrifying. And yet part of what the process is that now you can see it, you can clean it up. And that's what's happening. And that's why we are, as you mentioned, having many more people accept your work and accept channeled messages, because we are really shifting, and we're being postured. The planet's being postured in a place where that spiritual antenna that's inside of us, it's getting louder and noisier for us to hear. And the more you have people removing their own filters, it affects the person next to you. And then that person is affected to them. So every positive action that you create in your life ripples out to people around you in ways you have no idea about.
That's beautiful. I love that and totally agree with that. And I think that we're having an amplification now as well. That's, each month, each year, really since 2012, and even to some degree since the early 2000s, but each year things are amplifying, and so it's getting vibrationally louder here.
We had, if you think of it this way, I've never really thought of it totally this way, we had 2 layers of prophecies that we had to get through in our society. One of them in scripture from our churches said the year 2000 might then bring a World War III, we'd have rapture, we'd have Armageddon, whatever. And that was one marker. And then to the indigenous, we had 2012. So it was almost like the precession of the equinoxes, both falling, within a decade or so of each other of major shift. I always think it's funny because when the year 2000 came, the worst thing that happened was Y2K. So I mean,
I know. Everyone thought like it was going to be this huge deal, I know. And it just wasn't.
It's true. Well, that's what Kryon book 1 was all about, called The End Times, published in 1993, and he said there will be no more.
Oh, good.
There'd be no World War III. So he was talking about
it's all right.
the end of an old time.
I talked about it on your Healing Wednesday program, and for our listeners, when I was I would have been, I guess in like 1998ish, I would have been like about 20, and I saw Lee channel Kryon at a Sheraton hotel. I loved it. I was on my medicine path. I was just, starting to learn from my teacher. I had always had spirits around me, even as a kid. So it wasn't new to me, but to go to like a conference room, like a ballroom, have hundreds of people there, many hundreds of people there, listening to this guy channel this angel being, it was like, oh, maybe I'm not crazy. Like,
Maybe you're not.
I was just like, oh my gosh. And you had the coolest book, The Parables of Kryon. That's the book I bought at that event. I liked the cover. It was like pretty, and it was these, short stories.
was another Hay House book they did, and Kryon has talked in metaphors. In fact, almost all spiritual information, communications comes in metaphors, including scripture that in the Bible. And when you put it in parables, that's even more obfuscated, but it's fun to figure them out.
I think it's because we love storytelling. And when you look at a lot of the teachings of the indigenous and the ancients, it's given through stories, and more than just through stories, it's given through song and dance, because that's where you really retain, you're using different parts of your brain to access that. And it's kind of funny how, even though I'm an author and I love literacy and reading and writing, I came across this incredible book called The Memory Code by Lynn Kelly. And basically she says that literacy has dumbed us down, because once we were Google. By that, she's talking about the Australian Aboriginal culture has been living in the moment for 40,000 years. And they have oral tradition, and everything is passed down through oral tradition. And it means that you encode information in your brain with different memory aids, memory maps, and song and dance and all the rest of it. So it's kind of interesting. Sometimes you hear people, even myself, I've noticed that people are reading less than they used to before. And yet Lee and I will have that discussion. It's like, oh, I don't think people are really reading books anymore. But in essence, I think we're starting to shift where we are trying to get more information through audio.
Audio and multiple senses.
And visual.
That's right.
Absolutely. And also I think the language of symbols is coming to the forefront. You know, the emojis and things like that, you know, we're coming back to our symbolic essence, which in teaching shamanism, we kind of, you know, use the drum, like all my shamanism classes, I play the drum. So we kind of use the drum, we use the sound, and then we use the language of symbols from the subconscious through the process. And then here we are, like every day texting our friends, our family, these images, these little symbols, these emojis. I think that is also a one of many weird brain shifts that society is undergoing. Which
I agree totally. When I was growing up, my parents said that television would rot my brain. And they didn't have television. Sorry, that gives away my age. But when you have this situation, well, they were probably right. It did. But
they were right. They were
what happened? But now you have the same thing with adults now going to the kids. It says, look at social media. Now you're not reading. It's rotting your brain.
Screens.
What if it was a shift of the way we're perceiving things?
Totally.
And now it's completely visual and all. There's probably more connectivity today than there ever has been before between cultures because of this as well.
Absolutely. For all of us too, you know, more and more, you don't have to go to these other countries to deliver a channeling.
Right.
You know, all around the world, people are on your Wednesday events every week. My papu used to say, the Beatles were the end of hard work. Like he you know, he was Greek and like very into hard work, and it was like, well, maybe that's a good thing, Papu. Maybe people don't have to work all the time. Maybe they can enjoy some music and have some fun.
We really have seen both sides of it, because before COVID, before any of the streaming we're doing, this is what we did for a living. We went to other countries. We went in Arkansas where you saw us, but we were offshore maybe 3 times a year. We have been to so many countries and so many cultures and experiences.
Amazing.
And you're right. We'd have to go for years doing that with one Healing Wednesday month. We're reaching them all.
So is that when you started Healing Wednesday, because of COVID not being able to travel?
That's a story. That's I call it my have a little fire scarecrow story. And if you're old enough, you know where that's from. I really, when COVID hit and we could not travel anymore, you got to
Yes.
realize my living is traveling.
Yeah.
That's what I did, period. That's all I did. So we were, Monica and I were out for 4 days, home for 3, out for 4, home for 3. And then we went to overseas, we'd go for a month.
Wow.
We didn't stream anything. We were not into that. And we were not doing that because we were used to live people. That stopped. And when it did, and when we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't even fly, we were told to stay home. That's when I said, okay, what's the sign? And that is this the end of my career? And now it really is time to retire. And what do I do? That's when I had some synchronicities because of my past life as an engineer, my audio work and everything else, and knowing the people who could stream professionally. I put together a team and they all said yes. And they all came together in a small town in California. And we began streaming successfully almost immediately because my friends put this together so well. And that's just led to now a full studio, and we're never going to return to the schedule we had before.
Right. You don't need to.
No, we don't.
And you're reaching more people.
That's right. So to your Greek friend, we're having a nice day.
Exactly. They're listening to the Beatles. They're just kicking back, relaxing.
Yeah.
They're in a tropical jungle today. Life is good.
And by the way, we've been to Greece and they do work very hard.
I know they do.
Very hard workers there.
They are. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's totally a thing. It's been so wonderful to talk to you guys. We're like beyond our time that we usually talk, but we just had so much to discuss. And I'm so glad to have had you on the program. And I would love to hear if you had one thing, each of you, that you could tell our listeners, like one little pearl of wisdom to share today, what would it be?
For me, it's say, look, things look like they're getting worse. They're not. The light is exposing dirt. It's being cleaned up. Yes. Hang on, because it does. There's going to be more. There's a tendency for so many people to fear all of this because it's different.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when societies change and things are light is coming out. Believe it or not, things are getting better.
And my message is that we are here to enjoy life, to be in joy, that vibration of joy, and to play and to create. And the best place for me is out in nature, connecting with Gaia. Go and swim with the dolphins and hug a tree and put your feet into the dirt and feel the love and support that we are in such a beautiful planet. That the metaphor for Garden of Eden is the planet, and it was created for us as we go through this journey of discovering the spark that is inside. And if you're feeling down or having a down day, I don't know, go and play with some puppies or kittens or something, because your vibration will raise up because of that, because you are here for joy.
I couldn't have said it better. That between those two things, boy, you guys just what they said. That's what I would say to that. Really beautiful. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came on the program. And I'd really love to have all of you listeners, check out this amazing work that they are doing. They have apps, they have Healing Wednesday, they have Oracle decks. Monika has the Gaia Effect and 3 other books. There's 14 Kryon books. I mean, oh my gosh, there's so much. So where do our listeners find you? Website, social media, etc.
We have 2 sites, like it's very common. One is Kryon.com. It's easy to remember.
Yes.
That's where almost everything is, including, you should know that every single audio I've ever done for the last 15 years is free. We give them all away. Kryon.com/free audio will get you there. There's no strings attached. You can download them, listen to them. Just please don't monetize them because they're copywritten.
Yes.
And the other one is CryonMasters.com, and that's where you're going to find the Healing Wednesday program and all the information that's there.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And what are your social media handles?
So we have Kryon Lee Carroll as a YouTube channel. We also have Kryon Lee Carroll as a Facebook page. And we have several groups for our
Yes.
beautiful members within that framework as well. So there's
Wonderful.
the Kryon Masters
Wonderful.
group, which is also a beautiful, and the sharings that go on there are precious. Yeah.
Be aware.
I saw that in the Healing Wednesday group too. Beautiful stuff.
Just be aware. I know we're out of time, but
we're fine.
The first time you've ever heard me go to YouTube, you're going to find at least 3 other YouTube channels that say Lee Carroll and even have my picture, and they're fake, and they're
really,
they're using our channels and they're monetizing.
No.
We've tried to clean this up. YouTube really is not that cooperative.
They're not.
No, but just be aware that the real one is
Kryon Lee Carroll with no ads. So if you are getting a Kryon channel on YouTube and it gets interrupted by this horrible, shocking ad, it's fake.
Yeah, that's right.
And don't even bother with that one.
Well, the light shining on the dark, as you said.
That's it.
You know, the internet, people call it like the end of the age of secrets. Totally true, but we got some yahoos out there.
Yeah. It's not the end of the age of greed, not yet.
No, I don't think we've gotten there yet. No.
But we're living
with eventually, hopefully we'll get there at some point. And I think Kryon Lee Carroll is the Instagram.
Yes.
That you have. And Monika, your Instagram, I'm forgetting it. Do you remember what it is?
You know, I'm not active on Instagram.
You're not on it much.
That's probably why you're forgetting it.
I tagged you on it.
It probably did, but I
had to look and find you. So I'm gonna spell.
I have a website, monikamuranyi.com.
Perfect. Okay, so Monika is.
Good luck trying to figure out the spelling on that one.
That's why I'm gonna spell some things for everybody, because I think that will clarify. So Monika is Monika. And then Muranyi is Muranyi.
Correct.
Use that to find her site. If you'd like to find her and tag her or something on Instagram, you could. That is how I found you. And Lee Carroll is 2 R's, 2 L's, and Kryon is Kryon.
Good.
So now, let our brains swim in letters for a minute.
Preventative tape called Kryon.
Huh? What'd you say?
I said not to be confused with a rust preventative paint called Kryon.
Oh my gosh.
Which is what he thought it was the first time the psychic said, there's a message from Kryon trying to get a hold of you.
I thought spray paint.
And he thought spray paint was trying to talk to him.
You're like,
a new age
why do they want me to spray paint?
That's a true story. That's not a joke. We have many true stories like that. We have to come back and give you more of those kinds of things.
I love the jokes. You're always so funny, Lee. And Monika, you're like the perfect accompaniment. You're funny too. You guys make it so light.
She's a pretty one. I'm the funny one. That's great.
That's a good combo. That works.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And everyone go find Lee and Monika and all of their amazing contributions to this world. And thank you for listening to Happily Holistic. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Happily Holistic with me, Amy Lee Mercury. You can find out more about the show on amyleemercury.com on the podcast page. Please stop by your favorite social platform and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear how you liked today's show and what topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Come find me on Instagram and Facebook at amyleemercury.com. If you would like to see what a medical intuitive session with me is all about, hop on over to the Work With Me page on amyleemercury.com. Until next time, stay happily holistic.